Town of Florence Planning and Zoning meeting scheduled for November 7, 2013 at 6 p.m. This meeting is now called to order. Mr. O'Geen, can you take roll, please?
Sure. Chairman Woolley,
Present.
Vice Chair Patrick,
Present.
Commissioner Petty,
Present.
Commissioner Anderson,
Present.
Commissioner Reed. We have a quorum.
All stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next agenda item for this evening will be agenda item number 4. This is a discussion, approval, disapproval of the minutes for the regular meeting meeting conducted on July 18, 2013, August 1st, 2013, and August 15th, 2013. Has everybody had a chance to look at all those minutes?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Do I have any discussion or correction on these minutes?
I don't. No.
If I have no discussion or correction on these minutes, I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes that was conducted on July the 18th, 2013, August 1st, 2013, and August 15th, 2013.
Second.
I have a motion to approve all the minutes as presented this evening. The motion was made by Commissioner Anderson and seconded by Commissioner Reed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes have been approved. Next agenda item for this evening will be agenda item number 5. The first one is public hearing number PZC 34-13- This is a manufactured home subdivision rural ordinance, MHRSR. Presentation, discussion, and recommendation on an ordinance of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, amending the Town of Florence Code of Ordinances, Title 15, Land Usage, Chapter 150, Development Code, Section 150.031, Defined Words Section 150.047, District Use Regulations, Table A, and adding the new section entitled Manufactured Home Subdivision Rural, MHSR. We have a presentation on this evening?
Chairman, members of the Commission, yes.
Okay.
A brief explanation of this case, a little bit of history. First of all, can you all hear me all right?
Yes.
Good. I think we got the bugs out of the sound system, perhaps. Oh, they can't hear. So let me get a little closer. It's been kind of hit or miss if you can kind of hear in the whole room. Does that work better?
Can you hear?
Okay. All righty. The first application we have is pertaining to a proposed text amendment to establish a new zoning district. We would call it the Manufactured Home Subdivision Rural District. And the reason for doing that is because we have a pending annexation at this moment that includes a subdivision known as Wild Horse Estates. And so we have 2 annexations that have been filed, and we are going through the process of collecting signatures on those annexations and working with property owners. One is the Arizona Farms annexation, and the other is the Magic Ranch annexation. The Arizona Farms annexation includes the subdivision Wild Horse Estates. Now, when we do an annexation, when we annex an area, we have to bring in the comparable zoning that cannot be more intense, but it has to be comparable to what they have. Normally, that's pretty straightforward. If they have a master planned PAD in the county, we would bring in the master plan PUD. If they had commercial, straight, everyday commercial zoning on a piece of property, we would bring it in and apply B2 zoning. So in this particular case, the Wild Horse Estate subdivision, it's zoned manufactured home in Pinal County, and it allows for manufactured homes on the property, and it allows for some things that are a little bit different than what our manufactured home subdivision ordinance allows for, and it's developed substantially different than the county ordinance and our manufactured home subdivision area. For instance, you can just kind of compare and contrast. So Florence Gardens is zoned manufactured home subdivision, right? But completely different situation than Wild Horse Estates, which has larger lots. I believe the minimum lot in Wild Horse Estates is about 42,000 square feet. They also have some provisions for horses on the property. It definitely has more of a rural atmosphere than your Florence Gardens subdivision. Also, they are on septic and then connected to Johnson Utilities for water. So we're in the situation where applying the comparable zoning, the closest comparable zoning we have would be our MHS zoning. And I've just explained why that really is not very comparable to what applies out here. So we've taken it upon ourselves to write a new zoning district that can be applied as comparable zoning, that can address what the county allows and also be perhaps more reflective of actually what is out there on the ground. So, the new zoning district, it would allow for, and this is an interesting thing, because in the county zoning ordinance, it only allows for manufactured homes. Most of the homes in Wild Horse Estates appear to be of site-built construction. So this is a little interesting. So in our proposed ordinance, it would allow a newer manufactured home. It would allow site-built construction or a modular home, which is kind of in the middle ground of those. Right now we have in the ordinance a proposed 35,000 square foot lot size, and then also there are some provisions related to agricultural type of animals that could be kept on the property. And this is the starting point here. You know, I've had one or two phone calls, and you know, we've had a few meetings before, and people have been very vocal about, you know, what they want or what they don't want, or whether they want to be annexed or not annexed. And I did have a call the other day about somebody that, based on this draft, was very concerned about the number of animals that would be allowed, or in this case, it's done as animal units. So if you have 2 units per so many square feet, that can translate into either 2 large animals or maybe more medium or small animals. And that's why that in the ordinance, those definitions are added in the definition part of the code, animal units. And then in the zoning district, it tells you that you could have the 2 animal units per the specified square footage, and it puts some additional limitations on those. It also establishes some basic setback criteria and so forth. And so what we're doing is just establishing the parameters of a new zoning district that should the annexation be successful and we need to apply comparable zoning, we'd have a zoning district in place. I do have, you know, it's a public hearing, and one, you know, we actually took the extra step of inviting, you know, we sent a letter to everybody out in Wild Horse Estates inviting them to come to this meeting, although not a statutory requirement because we're not changing anybody's zoning. Ultimately, we may be applying comparable zoning, but that's not a change of zoning. So it wasn't a statutory requirement to invite folks to this meeting, but in our neighborhood meetings, we said that we wanted their comments and wanted them to be involved in the creation of this district. And so I have some possible ideas on things that maybe could be tweaked. I think what we have is a starting point, and maybe we can get through this evening and come out with a couple of changes and get something done. If it looks like it gets complicated beyond that, there's no urgency to make a decision tonight. If we get to that point, we could always carry it forward to the next meeting. But with that, I think it probably would be a good idea to kind of hear what folks want to say and hear what the commission would like to say on this case.
Okay, hold on.
No, you can't turn it on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Before I open the public hearing, I just want to remind to the public, this is an opportunity for you to address the board. we cannot discuss anything with you. All we can do is listen to you. The other thing I also would like to remind you is that the board will not tolerate any threatening or intimidating of the commission at any point. It's a public hearing. We will listen to what you have to say, but we have to emphasize the fact that we don't take any threatening or intimidating behavior either. Okay? So with that, I will open up the public hearing on case number PZC 34-13-ordinance. Public hearing is now open. Do I have any public that would like to speak at this time? Let's go ahead and have this gentleman speak. Either one. Sir, go ahead and state your name and address for the record, too.
My name is Terry McDad. I live at 9723 East Pinto Pony Drive in Wild Horse Estates. And I would really disagree with this gentleman over here. They're attempting to change our zoning in there. We received this annexation affidavit mailing on October 24th, and in this mailing there was a list of questions and answers addressing a lot of questions that came up with respect to the annexation. And on page 4 of the frequently asked questions and answers, there was an item number 6 that stated that the town was going to zone us so that we had the same number of animals permitted by Pinal County. Pinal County allows 2 horses only, nothing else per lot, no other animals other than 2 horses per 1 acre lot or more. So it's per lot and it's not per square footage. And this is consistent with the recorded covenants and conditions and restrictions for Wild Horse Estates. There are CC&Rs in there, and they say 2 horses per lot, end of story, nothing else. And by virtue of buying a home and owning property in Wild Horse Estates, owners are bound by the Pinal County zoning and the CC&Rs. And then about 6 or 7 days later, I actually received the new and improved zoning that they're proposing, the town is proposing to do in our area. And it's in direct conflict with the Pinal County zoning and the CC&Rs pertaining to animals. It's allowing, we have some lots in there, I looked at it, some of the lots will be allowed 6 animal units. That's 60 chickens, 30 goats, and 6 horses. And that's unacceptable for dry land, non-irrigated land in our area. And it violates our covenants and the rest of the property owners' rights in there. It will increase the noise, the odors, and the flies in our neighborhood will negatively impact the property values in our area. So in order to get my vote for annexation, the number of animals needs to be put back to 2 animals or 2 horses per lot, as we're presently zoned by the Pinal County and by our covenants. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I do believe there was a letter sent in by Kelly Gilbert, and it was asked to be read at this meeting. Did anyone receive that? It was sent to the mayor and some other people.
No, sir, we did not. I did not receive a letter. No.
You haven't seen a letter?
Do we have any other public that would like to speak at this time? Go ahead, sir. Actually, because I need you on the record, I could actually have a chair brought up for you, but I need you on the microphone so that they can record the minutes. Actually, we have a wireless mic we'll bring to you. Once you get the microphone, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Michael Beck. I live at 23664 North Chaps Drive in Wild Horse Estates. I have lived there for 8 years. I have had 4 horses. That was part of the condition for my buying the property, was that I'd be allowed to keep my 4 horses. That's what I was bringing down. Contrary to this gentleman, horse manure only lasts with any moisture for about 2 hours. In the heat of the summer, maybe an hour. If you don't have moisture, you don't have flies. When I moved into my house, before my horses were even down here, there were tons of flies. It hasn't increased or decreased because of my horses. I have had the county out there because a neighbor complained about the flies. What it actually turned out to be was gnats. And the county representative come out and said, you probably have some of the cleanest pens in the whole county. And he approved everything I was doing. Okay? That deals both with the horses and the horse manure. I spoke with the young lady that runs the planning and development services for the county. She said we are improperly zoned. We have every property out there has a minimum of 1 acre. Now you can look on that chart. She has the thing for the properties. Everybody, some have up to 2. I have over 1 acre. That was what allowed me to have the 4, according to my sale agreement. I do not want to change. I do not want to have to get rid of my 2 horses. Now, Terry Lynn was the young lady I spoke with, the county. She said that if we do not get annexed, they have a new zoning commission, and she recommended R43 with a caveat that allowed us to keep a minimum or up to 4 horses. We could get that in place. That's their zoning thing for the county. So I don't know who come up with this one you're talking about. All you're doing is just making another one that's pretty much the same as what we already have. We have well over 80 houses that are stick-built. We have, what did you say, 15? 15 houses that are manufactured. How could we be considered a manufactured house? Doesn't make any sense. She agreed. We have been miszoned since the beginning.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do I have any more public that would like to speak at this time? Step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Barbara Hipsher, and my address is 10063 East Pinto Pony Drive. We just moved here, and he's talking about these covenants. We never received those, so I have no idea what those are or what that means. We bought it. The realtor said it's a horse property. I had the miniature horses in Maricopa County, and I moved to Tennessee to take my husband so he could die there. They were actually therapy for him, and now that he died, I brought him back, and I really don't want to get rid of them, but they're only like 30 and 32 inches. 3 of these equal 1 big horse. So we were never told, or we were never informed. We just thought, same as Maricopa, you know, all as Arizona is pretty much the same. You can have your horses on a horse property. Nobody said that they limited those, so it's kind of like, you know, we're being penalized. And when you buy a horse property, that's what most people want, is their horses. And that's what they're advertised. When you look at the realtor's listing, it says horses allowed. It doesn't say there's a limit. There's nobody that puts limits on these horses, and evidently the realtors don't know that, or I'm sure they would have. But it's like, okay, we just, like I said, we moved there. We didn't get all this, and all of a sudden now they're saying, oh, you got 1 too many horses? Neighbor's got a dog bigger than one of my horses. So, I mean, you know, I just don't agree with that, and I'm like this gentleman. I've had these horses in Tennessee, and I've had them here. Tennessee, you got moistures, you're going to have manure. Here, the manure actually will dry up, you rake it up, and it actually makes great bedding for the horses, and it goes into the ground. So the manure is really not out there here. Because I've had horses in Ohio and Tennessee, and it makes a big difference because we have to shovel it and get rid of it there. We don't have to here. You just rake it up, and it goes right into the ground. It actually makes great bedding. And so I just don't know what the big deal is or why they're all of a sudden, you know, this gentleman's lived there 8 years and all of a sudden everybody's complaining. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous to do that. And we didn't even know anything about the annexation. Why? I mean, I don't know why you're doing it. What's the purpose? What benefits us to be annexed? And we didn't get any of this. And then he said he got a letter on the 24th with questions. We didn't get that. So I don't know. Evidently, everybody's not getting everything, or people's not on the same page. So I guess that's my thing.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Do I have any more public that would like to speak at this time? Go ahead and state your name and your address for the record, please.
Hi, my name's Kelly Nevis, and I live in Wild Horse Estates. And first of all, I'd like to thank whomever has worked so diligently on this zoning proposal, because it's pretty good, and with a couple of changes, it could be almost perfect. One of the suggestions that I would have, first of all, the minimum, according to Pinal County tax records, there's no lot out of all 84, because I went and did this last night myself and wrote down every single one. There's no lot there that's less than 1 acre, according to, again, the public website for Pinal County. So I know that says the smallest lot's .98, but the smallest one is 1.00, which is equivalent to 43,560 square feet. The largest parcel is 1.80, and the rest of them are at least 1 or greater. So I didn't do an average. 1.07 is probably pretty accurate. I would recommend and suggest that there be no less than 4 animal units per parcel, and my comments are based solely on what was mailed out from the town of Florence regarding the proposal and what their description was. So I'm not going to go into the definitions of animal units and all that stuff. I'm just saying that I would ask you to consider it would be no less than 4 animal units per parcel, because the smallest parcel is 1 acre and most of them are more than that. I would ask that the chicken quantity be changed from 10 chickens equaling 1 animal unit to 20 chickens equaling 1 animal unit. And the reason for that is, if you think of a horse and you think of a group of 20 chickens and 1 chicken, well, if it's a bantam, it can be really small. If it's a larger breed, then, you know, they can be a little bit bigger. But 20 chickens equivalent to 1 horse, I mean, that doesn't even really equate. So I don't think that's an unreasonable request to have it be 20 chickens per 1 animal unit. And if you wanted to then prohibit anybody from having more than 20 chickens, you could make some sort of limitation saying that, you know, only 1 of the animal units can be chickens. And so then that way somebody wouldn't end up having 80 chickens on a parcel with no other animals, if that's what it came out to be, if there were 4 animal units per parcel. I also believe and would request that you should allow 1 rooster per parcel, not based on the size of it or anything, not as a consideration as part of the animal units, but just 1 rooster total. And if there's a noise issue with that, then I'm pretty sure you guys probably already have noise ordinances and stuff in place that would address any noise issues, because there's a lot of benefit to having fertile eggs and or being...
You can wrap up. You can wrap up.
Being able to raise, you know, more chickens if through attrition you lose some instead of having to go out and buy some more. One of the other things was that animals couldn't be allowed to graze in the front of the property, and I think they should be allowed to graze on any part of the property. So if you have goats, they could provide weed control in the front as well as the sides and the back. And then I'd like to know what the process is from this point forward, if you're going to take any considerations under advisement, if there's going to be another notification for future meetings on this topic. I know you said, Mark mentioned that you don't have to make a decision tonight, so I don't know if we're going to have it carry over, if we're going to get notified again of when that meeting would be. And the last thing I would just like to finish with, and I'm taking up my husband's 3 minutes also because he's not going to talk, is we've lived here for 4 years, and some neighbors have had animals and some have not. And in 4 years' time, we haven't had 1 issue with a single neighbor, whether they've had 1 animal or whether they've had 20 animals. And I think there's a reason that people purchase in a property subdivision called Wild Horse Estates, and usually it's because they're friendly towards animals. And if they're anything like me, and animals bring explicit joy, unlike some people I know, you know, there's a reason that we like to see animals on our property and see them grazing in the front yard. We have people stop all the time and ask if they can come pet our animals and meet them or visit them, because people love animals, typically. So anyways, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your work, because for me, the annexation is only about the animals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir, go ahead.
My name is Logan Smith, and I live in Wild Horse Estates along with my wife.
Can you give me your actual address, please?
23625? Severely dyslexic.
Okay, thank you.
We live along that wash, and unfortunately, animals are a big pain to us because the gentleman over here, not only does he have, when he was referring to how nice his property is, hogwash. He dumps all of his horse crap into the wash, so it floats down in front of our properties, and I'm down in the wash every year cleaning all the brush out because his horse crap creates little pockets of parachutes, which raises the water level in that and makes a whole bunch of little dams. Instead of the water flowing down, it's a major hassle for me. So I spend a lot more time removing his horse crap than he does. Along with those too many horses, he's got too many dogs. And I'm sure that every member here probably would like to wake up in the morning and have their coffee or tea without hearing 5 dogs barking nonstop. Well, I invite every member here, before you vote to have too many horses or too many dogs on a property, to come have tea on my back porch or coffee in the morning. And you'll hear his dogs barking nonstop from 6 o'clock in the morning until 9 or 10 o'clock. And it's not why we moved to a rural area. There are people that take care of their properties, there are people that take care of their animals and that, but there are a lot of people that do not. And because you have people that get up here and tell a half-truth, we invite everybody here to come to our house any morning you like. And when you hear those dogs barking for hours on end, 3 doors down, or when you walk over the berm and you see maybe hundreds of pounds, maybe tons of horse crap, that's not why we bought that property. We all bought it because we wanted quiet and a little bit of solitude just outside the city. So we would ask you to be, if you're going to allow more animals, we would like it to be where if there's a multiple complaints, that you would investigate it, maybe record those complaints and get rid of those abusers. Because unfortunately in our area there are abusers, and there's some people that take very good care of their property. There's just as many that don't. And we don't want to live next door to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any more public that would like to speak at this time? Is there any more public that would like to speak at this time? With the absence of the public, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. The public hearing is now closed, and I will open up to the commission for questions.
I guess I have a couple maybe. General question is, when you annex something, does it have to be, this is for down the road, for my knowledge, does it have to be contiguous? In other words, does it have to touch the city boundaries, or can you, an isolated bit of land, can you annex an island?
Yeah, there's, Chair, Planning Commission, there's a lot of rules on annexations, and you have to be contiguous. There's rules pertaining to the length versus the width of the annexation, the minimum width of an annexation area. There's rules on not creating any islands, basically going around an area and leaving an unincorporated Pinal County island. So there are a lot of rules and regulations on it, and so every annexation that we've done, we have to strategically look at how we grow and how we comply with those regulations. And in this particular area, the comment has been made, obviously, with this particular subdivision, of some folks have said, well, why don't you just not annex it and annex everything else? Well, it gets to the point where you're ultimately creating an island, because we're already actually, town of Florence is 3 miles north of this area already, and now we're just kind of going in and filling in the areas, and hopefully we're successful in bringing in the Magic Ranch annexation, so everything to the west along Arizona Farms Road to the Gila River Indian Community, we'll bring that in. We would very much like to bring in all the land along Arizona Farms, Crestfield Manor to the north of this subdivision. We'd really like to bring in this subdivision. So there are the ways of strategically including or excluding an area, but the town of Florence legitimately actually wants to grow in this direction and wants to bring these areas in. We've stated all the reasons. We've had multiple meetings and certified notices and petitions have been sent out. There's numerous reasons why we want to grow and why we want to annex, but ultimately the town of Florence feels that we can best service this area and we will have the best opportunities for our future and for the future of this area if it's included within our municipality. These two areas, they're not even included in the boundaries of the Santan incorporation, should that ever happen. So, you're going to end up having Queen Creek grow just a little bit more, Santan incorporation, town of Florence is wrapping up here, and then these little isolated areas in the middle that probably ultimately, may not have the best representation. So we'd really like to grow this way and bring this area in. This is a very odd scenario because the comment was made, about the zoning. It's so correct, because it's shocking that it's zoned manufactured home, MH, manufactured home zone. It allows public park, manufactured home, church, accessory building or use, home occupation, and then the two horses. And the minimum lot area in the county right now is 8,000 square feet. So say that the minimum lot here, okay, maybe it's 0.98 or benefit of the doubt, maybe it's exactly 1. But in any case, it's a lot larger than 8,000 square feet. As I said, and as it was stated by the public, the majority of the homes are actually site-built.
They are.
They're technically non-conforming because when I contacted the county, I said, well, it says it only allows manufactured homes. Why are most of the homes site-built? Well, because there was a previous interpretation at one point that it was okay to do site-built, but we no longer agree with that interpretation. So technically, almost every lot in there is in a non-conforming situation.
Right, unlike Florence Garden, which is all manufactured homes, there's a smattering of manufactured homes, and there's large homes
Right.
there. It looks to be over 3,000 square foot, and, with that, say they were annexed, are they subject to the new regulation by the town right away, or are they grandfathered in?
Well, so one thing that we
Change anything?
Well, one thing that we want to do is have the comparable zoning. And so, the closest comparable zoning that we have is the Florence Gardens manufactured home zoning.
Right.
Well, you bring in the area and you apply that zoning, well, almost everything's non-conforming because that zoning doesn't allow any horses, and the minimum lot size doesn't coincide, and you can only do manufactured housing in our current town manufactured home zoning district. So you'd bring the area in and everybody would be non-conforming. What we said over and over in this process is that we want to try and find some kind of
Middle ground?
solution here where we can bring the area in and they can continue to have their rural lifestyle. It's a really it's unfortunate that there's some apparent conflicts in the neighborhood, but if you drive through the area, and I've been through there numerous times now because of this annexation, it's a really nice subdivision. Are there a few homes that need a little help here and there, a few lots? Yeah, but there are in every single subdivision that you go to. Overall, it's a really nice place, and it's nice to have a place where you can have a site-built home or a manufactured home on a decent-sized lot and have a couple of horses, so we're just. Our goal was to figure out how to come up with a zoning district that could deal with all these things, but comply with the statutory requirements that, at the end of the day, we can't apply a zoning district that is more intense. So, most logical scenario for that would be if they were zoned residential, we couldn't bring them in and zone them commercial. Yeah. All right. If their minimum lot size was 8,000, we can't zone them for 2,000 square foot lots and allow, double the density or something. We can't go more intense, but we don't have to have an identical zoning district. So we need to establish a residential zoning district that reflects that they have manufactured and site-built and some animal privileges. And there's obviously mixed opinions on how far the animal privileges go. There are CC&Rs recorded on the property. I don't think that there's anybody that enforces them on a civil basis, and I certainly don't think that an HOA was probably ever established, even from the beginning of time. But there are recorded covenants on the property.
That's the other question I had. Do they have a functional HOA there, or?
They do not.
We don't have one now, but there was one established at the beginning with, probably up about sometime like 2007.
Okay. So there is the potential that if they were to reestablish a homeowners association, there are provisions in there limiting the animals to 2 horses. So, if the town was to establish something that allowed more animals and the HOA is put back together and those CC&Rs are in place, they apply to every property out there, every property owner, then through their HOA, they could have enforced the restrictions on the animals and say, 2 horses period, no matter what the town says. We don't enforce CC&Rs and the HOA doesn't enforce town regulations.
Right.
So,
I have two quick things here that deal with this conflict. One is the number of animals, and the fact that it hasn't been enforced. The number of animals criteria hasn't been enforced. How do you address this so that this gentleman doesn't have to give away 2 horses? And by the same token, we're opening up a whole new thing for the town to consider, and that is the dumping of waste and that kind of stuff, because it certainly is, I'm sure there's probably a state law about that kind of thing, and that should be addressed specifically.
well, those are very good questions, and I think in regards to creating an ordinance, I suppose I would say that we would never be able to create the perfect ordinance. I think that you're going to either upset one faction or the other. In regards to the regulatory components of keeping animals and dealing with waste and everything, the county already has provisions for that, and we have provisions for that in our code, and there's a couple other references that are put into this section of the code, but the town of Florence actually, has pretty much adopted the Pinal County ordinance requirements on the keeping of animals, and we use their animal control folks actually for those things. And there's also air quality, dust control. There's already a lot of rules that would deal with that if people were to, if people were to call in violations or if violations were noted by, county employees going by or something like that. So those things are already addressed in code. You cannot create unsanitary conditions. So whether you're allowed to have 2 horses or 6 horses, you cannot have unsanitary conditions on your property.
And that would be a health issue, a county
Those are
health issue anyways.
Those are health issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have 2 questions. One, what you were just talking about, Mark, who is going to enforce these regulations about the number of animals?
Member Anderson, members of the commission, if the area is annexed and if we have this or a similar zoning district, the zoning provisions would be enforced by the Town of Florence Community Development Department and code compliance personnel within our department. In regards to health provisions, they may possibly continue to be enforced through the county regulations and county personnel.
Are you staffed to do that? We primarily do because we actually do, well, today we actually have no building inspectors. One has moved on to another department and one has resigned. So, but even with and we're recruiting for 2 building inspectors, but even with being staffed there,
one of the building inspectors was doing code compliance on a part-time basis. We have not had a dedicated code compliance officer in the town of Florence, so primarily we've been addressing the more urgent life safety issues as we see them and/or as they're reported to us. So we haven't had a position or the personnel that we drive around looking for violations. I don't know, other communities, I think they actually have code compliance personnel to that level where they can drive around and deal with those things. So one thing I can tell you is today, we would be in no position, and quite frankly, I don't know how much interest we would have in, driving around and counting animals. That's not the intent of it. The intent is that, we have regulations and the people comply with them, and if we find out through some mechanism, whether it's being reported or something, then we would have a responsibility to enforce those provisions.
I wasn't expecting you to drive around and count chickens, but I say, someone were to call, who would they call to complain to?
If they were to call the town of Florence under, and it's a zoning provision, then we're going to take care of it in community development, planning, and zoning.
So you would respond to a complaint?
We respond to all complaints.
Okay, that answers my question. My other quick question is this more or less restrictive than the current county zoning requirements?
We can't create anything that is more intense, and I don't believe that we have here, because the use of the property is in the sense that it is a residential property that allows one home per lot. It's a residential zoning district, lower density residential district, one home per lot. That is the principal use of the property. Now you can get into all the specifics about what might be an accessory use and what your setbacks might be, and those might vary from what the county has. At the end of the day, the comparable zoning is residential, single-family residential to single-family residential of a similar density, and allowing the manufactured provision in there. Again, if it were zoned in R1 single-family residential, we could not upzone it to an R3 apartment residential. If it was B1, we couldn't upzone the area to B2. If it was B2, we couldn't upzone the area through an annexation to I1. So it has to be like in nature for the use. It cannot be more intense, but it can be different, and it almost always is, because the county rules vary quite substantially from the town ordinances.
But essentially, we won't be telling people tomorrow that they're non-compliant.
Well, that's one thing that we never want to do when we're working on an annexation, is like we always want to look for an opportunity to try and avoid those creation of nonconformity. So whether we, through an annexation, or even if we were to change zoning provisions in the town, you always want to avoid the scenario where you create nonconformities. You just don't want to do that, and in fact, you don't want to go out of your way to invite 84 homeowners, to say, yeah, we really want you to come in, and as soon as you come in, oh, you're not conforming. So I don't know, quite frankly, if I've heard comments both ways on the code, and I've heard objections to goats and to sheep.
Chickens.
Chickens. Chickens are kind of interesting because worldwide and definitely nationwide, there are even urban cities that are allowing chickens again in residential areas, because it's important for people to start remembering how to sustain themselves and grow their own food and everything. So chickens actually are becoming universally popular in suburban and urban areas, and I kind of look at this area and think, while respecting everybody's viewpoint, I think if you could have a horse, some chickens probably would be great too. But definitely respect all the viewpoints, and open to suggestions if you kind of want to walk through, and if you have any ideas.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. Before we go on to that part, unless I'm reading the public wrong, they're not opposed to annexation. I'm getting that feeling. And they're not really opposed to the ordinance itself that creates the new zoning, if you will. I think the big issue is how many animals they can and can't have. So my question is, what's our timeline? What's our timeline? How quick are we annexing?
The annexation has been filed. You know, the scenario that we'd like to look at is to have the annexation completed this fiscal year, which would be June 30th, 2014. You know, that's kind of the scenario we're looking at. If we were to collect all the signatures and resolve all the issues before then, get the annexation done in the first quarter, that'd be wonderful. But, you know, there's a lot of other components that are going on. So there's no urgency in deciding something here tonight, and we have really kind of a light representation. You know, if there's 84 lots, you know, we have some folks here tonight, but we didn't get any. I've only gotten the one phone call from one person that's here, and no other written comments at this point.
Well, I guess my concern is I've been through many annexations, as you know, and we can do this right, and everybody can be happy, including the town of Florence, the residents on this side of the room, the residents on that side of the room. So my thing is, I don't want to rush to decide tonight. First off, I'd like to see, which I don't see it anywhere in our packet, the current county zoning, what they're allowed, what they're not allowed. Can we form a committee using the community to where we can get a mutual agreement and then move forward?
One thing maybe we could do, Chairman Woolley, if it would be all right, is to at our next meeting, possibly to have a work session type of environment where we can kind of sit down at the same level and kind of hash it out bit by bit and just to kind of work through it at that meeting and not to have that be a public hearing and not to come up with a vote at that meeting.
Right.
But just to be able to kind of sit on the floor and talk about it some more, and we could invite all the folks to come and
Well,
interact.
at least offer it to the ones that were obviously concerned tonight because they're here.
Mm-hmm.
At least, can we involve them in our work session like that? Or is there a route that they can get a hold of you guys?
It's ultimately when you have a work session, so if you have a work session, it's up to the chair how much public involvement and comment that you want in that process. Same thing if council has it, you know, the mayor has the control over, you know, how much people, but I mean, I think in this scenario it would be important for folks to kind of, you know, get up and state, you know, here's my concerns, how can we address those? And we've heard some of them, and maybe we can prepare a couple of drafts and a couple more drafts, a couple more scenarios, and then also get you the county regulations and so forth. And
I just have a feeling that if we could sit down and hammer it out, I think all parties could probably agree on something, and then we could move forward with that. Because what I'm feeling about this zone is we're creating this pretty much just for them. I don't see us using this zone in the future anywhere else. So in my mind, can't we create something to where we can just sit down, make all parties happy, including the town of Florence, because we do have to be happy too. And is that possible that we can do that?
yeah, I'd like to try that, and I think maybe what we could do is just do a continuance if you're so inclined to do a continuance of this meeting. Let's not do it to a specific date because we want to kind of
Get a chance to organize it.
see how the next meeting goes and
Yeah.
so forth. If we could do a continuance of this meeting, and then we'll look at our. Do you know how we look on the next meeting, Gilbert, on the second meeting in November? One second, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think a work session on the 21st would be a good plan. So we'll go ahead and set something up, and
That's our next meeting, correct?
that's our next meeting, so 6 o'clock. But to confirm that, we will go ahead and re-notify the folks out there. I mean, and for this notice, it's not a statutory requirement, so we're avoiding the postage cost of doing it by
Right.
certified mail, but we will send another notice, and I'm sure the folks that are here can talk to their neighbors
Yeah,
and say,
spread the
hey,
word, spread the word that
Spread
we're
the
having
word.
this meeting, yeah.
Okay, so the next one would be a work session where we're going to kind of decide all together what's going to happen. And then that would hit the first December meeting, right? For an actual action at that point? Or could it be an action item at that next meeting as well?
Yeah, well, if we wanted to, for action, immediately go into the first meeting in December, then we'd have to do probably a continuance tonight to that first meeting. And,
In December,
yeah,
okay.
because otherwise, if we wait till the work session to do it, then we won't have enough time to make the statutory notice in the paper to come back in the first meeting.
Does that give you guys enough time if we say we're going to continue this to the December meeting?
Yeah, I think so, because, you know, between this meeting and the work session, you know, we're going to come up with the best thing that we can, and then it's going to go to council. And so everybody may not find it perfect, but I think, you know, between all these meetings and discussions, it's going to be the best thing that we can come up with. So if we do a continuance of this meeting to the first meeting in December.
Which is what date?
The first meeting in December would be the...
December 5th?
December 5th. Okay?
Okay, thank
So,
you.
So that's the official part of it is a continuation of this meeting to December 5th, and then also, I don't think there's any action to say that the work session is at the next meeting. We'll just set that up.
I'll just make part of that as a motion.
Okay.
So, do I have any further? Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and make the motion on case number PZC 34-13 ORD. The motion this evening is going to be that we continue this case to the December 5th, 2013 meeting. Also, that we will form a work committee, a work session at our next meeting on November 21st, inviting at a minimum the public that is present tonight to partake in that work session on November 21st. November 21st is not to be an action item, just a discussion. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay, I have all kinds of seconds. Okay, I have a motion on the floor made by Chairman Woolley this evening and seconded by Commissioner Puttrick and Commissioner Petty. The motion this evening is to continue this case until December 5th, 2013 at our regular meeting and to form a work session on November 21st. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This case has now been continued. Next agenda item for this evening will be a public hearing on case number PZC 38-13-ordinance. This is the design review text amendment. It's a presentation, discussion, recommendation, an ordinance of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, amending the Town of Florence Code of Ordinances, Title 15, Land Uses, Chapter 150, Development Code, Section 150.013, Design Review. I'm assuming we have a case or a presentation on this case?
Yes, indeed, Chair, members of the commission. Try to make it through this item a little bit more quickly.
Mark, can you hold off 1 second? You guys are welcome to stay at this point, or you can exit at this time. You're always welcome to stay for a public hearing. I just don't want you to feel like you have to sit here through the whole meeting.
Yeah, we actually like you being here because generally our meetings don't have many attendees.
I just didn't want you guys to feel like you have to stay for the whole thing.
Huh? Yeah, absolutely. I was going to suggest that. So, because I just conflict between these two guys, that we have to set up the situation so that they can resolve that conflict.
Yeah, I agree.
Between themselves.
Okay, with that, if you want to go ahead and continue, Mr. Eckhoff, I think we're okay.
Okay. Okay, the next item pertains to some changes to the DR design review section of the code. And you have kind of an ordinance in front of you that looks like a big mess there. But instead of you know, trying to go through and tweak this section and do little edits here and keep some and change some, just decided, you know, it was short enough of a section just to strike out the existing section and reword this section. One, to really reflect the reality of how the design review process works, how the applications are handled, how interpretations are made on design review, and also to streamline the process. In fact, it's a little bit cumbersome when you look at the current ordinance and it describes you know, the number of scenarios where design review might be required, like 7 different scenarios. We've just brought that down to, you know, there's 2 main scenarios. Either you're going up and you're creating something that we need to look at, or you're on the ground and you're creating something that we need to look at. You know, the design review process is a good process, but you know, that part of the code was a little cumbersome. We also kind of wanted to just provide a little bit more background explaining, you know, why did we do the DR process and what we're looking for, and then also kind of create some opportunities to streamline the process a little bit so that you know, there's some applications that maybe can you know, clearly they're handled like grading plans. You know, there would be no interpretation that a grading plan or something similar would ever go through DR, because that's handled by the town engineer or through a grading permit process. So there's some things that just wouldn't ever go through DR. There's some things that we feel that actually could be administratively handled. Like a lot of times we get these cases that are like really so minor, and we're like, wow, we had to hold you up for, you know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks to kind of look at that little attached sign or something like that. So we feel like we could streamline some scenarios, and then everything else is pretty much the same. But you know, the way the code is written right now too, there's even potentially some scenarios where a change of occupancy or reusing a building that's been vacant for a while, or a change of use, you know, these things that may not even evoke a potential change of the exterior of the building, or changes on the exterior of the lot, you know, still we're kind of conditioned to go through DR. So you know, to summarize, if you're doing something notable that's going up or going horizontal, we're going to go through the DR. If it's fairly simple in nature, maybe it's administrative. If it's more complex, like most of the stuff that you see and you regulate already, it's going to go through your process. So I think that what we're doing here is just reflecting the overall nature of where this department has been trying to go into create efficiencies and be more you know, economic development friendly and customer service friendly. Just trying to streamline the process a little bit. And that's it.
Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on case number PZC 38-13-ordinance on the design review text amendment. Public hearing is now open. Do I have any public that would like to speak on this case? With the absence of the public, I will close the public hearing. This public hearing is now closed, and I'll open it up to the commission for questions.
I have nothing.
Nothing.
Oh, I've got a bunch.
Okay.
Matter of fact, you know, my review was, we went from a 1.5-page code to a 4-page code. So I don't think we've simplified it. The whole thing is sort of overwhelming to me, because we talk about things above grade and things that are vertical. In section B, for example, when we talk about the PUD, talk about horizontal project components such as parking areas, driveways, circular areas, landscape areas, outdoor storage areas, retention basins, parks, and other similar sites. But when I challenged the new park that was built by Pulte and the soccer field, I was told that was not horizontal. So I'm not sure what you're talking about here when you say parks. Does this include soccer fields or not? And when you talk about above grade, when is it above grade? Whenever they go out and start leveling out the desert, is that part of the design review? You know, we talked about the city planning department covers most of that, or not the planning department, but whatever department it is that covers our streets and stuff.
Will the parks, whether they're private or public,
Yeah.
they would be reviewed by staff as they are now? So
Well-
either through community development, or the town engineer on a grading level, or Parks and Recreation if there's a public component to the park.
Well, over in section H on page 5, H2, you say that except for commercial recreation facilities.
In H?
Yeah.
H2,
H2,
page 5.
page 5.
Right, the parks, the parks, commercial recreation facilities would mean that if somebody was coming in with an auto track or a paintball place or a bowling alley, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about parks.
Well, I can't see why a paintball alley wouldn't require approval in a design review.
It does require it.
Well, what does it mean when you say except for commercial recreation facility?
It means that the staff would do would do the DR for the park process, which we do. The commercial recreational facilities would be something that would be a commercial project, and it would go.
Well,
I think I can, let me help on that one, I think I can here. What H is saying is the following items would be done by the town staff, as they should be, except for a commercial recreation facility. For an example, Pulte decides to build the new Arizona Diamondbacks training facility up in Sun City. That's a commercial facility. That would have to go before design review. But if Pulte builds a baseball field as part of their park system, that's not a commercial field because it's not paid to use. It's part of the living in Pulte Homes development. Did that help you?
Well, no, because, you know, the way I read this is that the town staff is going to review all of these things. It doesn't matter.
That's not the way I read that.
Well, you know.
No, the only types of applications that are going to be done by staff would be simple attached signs, unless in the zoning or in the historic district requirements, you know, it requires actually going to a body to get approved. So in the historic district, all the DR goes to Historic District Advisory Commission, and we're not changing that. We would do, you know, the basic landscaping in parks, recreational areas. Staff would do a DR on a project that was involved less than 10,000 square feet, or less than one acre. So if somebody has a little infill lot down here, that we could get it, we could expedite it and get it through that process.
So, like I said, my concern is there is your exception there. I just don't see why we need that exception.
Because if we don't put the exception in there, that's what you call a loophole. Some commercial guy is going to come in and go, well, wait a minute, why does this have to go to the commission when it says right here that you guys, the staff, can actually approve it? So if we don't put that word in there that we want commercial facilities to come before us, that we just created a major loophole where the Diamondbacks could now go straight to the staff and say, no, I'm not paying for that to go to your commission, because it says right here, you can approve it.
Well, but up here,
It's, this exception actually protects us so that all commercial stuff still has to go before the commission.
Oh.
That's what that's saying.
well then, maybe I've misread the whole thing then. So we're saying that parks and recreation fields don't have to come before us.
As long as they're not commercial, if they're part of a subdivision like Pulte Homes, you don't pay to use those, so they're not commercial, okay?
But we don't have to have a design review for them.
No, that normally in most bigger cities is done by your town staff. The parks and small stuff like that is usually done by your town staff. But what they wanted to make sure was that we didn't create a loophole for any commercial development that would want to come in and build a huge recreation facility. They still would have to come before us.
Well, that's,
So a soccer field for Pulte Homes, let's just use it since it's out there.
yeah.
Town staff would have the right to say, you know what, yes, this fits, no, it doesn't fit, and they can approve it without it going to us. And that's the way most of your big cities do it. Very small stuff goes right to your town staff, and it fits right in, they take it, they move forward with it. What they did was they built in a safety feature so that some big corporation doesn't come back and go, well, we don't have to go to your commission because right here, it says that you do all parks and recreation facilities. So they built that in to save us and say, if you're a commercial organization, you have to go before design review.
Well-
That's what that's saying.
You know, I guess I would like to see parks come to us. Any type of park. Soccer field or whatever.
Yeah, and I think the chairman is correct. I'm just not really familiar with, you know, HOA parks ever actually going through a DR process. And this came up in this recent scenario, and kind of just thought, where do you draw the line on that of HOAs? You know, do you bring a pocket park? Do you bring the soccer field? It's like, you know, they have to comply with the minimum requirements of their PUD. You know, if they have irrigation and things like that, they have to go through and get plumbing permits. I mean, they go through, there's a review process. We review landscape plans. We review compliance with the zoning. If it's a public park, that really is within the jurisdiction of the parks department, and ultimately they may want to bring something to their parks and Recreation Advisory Board, you know, for their blessing, but it's really not a DR issue per se.
Well, the pocket parks, at least in our subdivisions, are approved when they bring the individual plans to us, right? They show those on there as pocket parks. My complaint, which started all this, was they were going out and they were building this whole new park complex, which was not ever approved. It was not part of the original plan.
I actually beg to differ with you because I was here when Pulte first presented Anthem at Merrill Ranch. And that recreation system has always been in the initial plans. It was always, it went all the way through council. I mean, it's always been there. They opted to do it in phases because obviously it grows in phases
They've
out there.
changed it.
But the recreation facility has always been in the
Oh, yeah.
plans.
I mean, there was
Change model
always-
homes all the time.
There was always something you draw in there that said, that's going to be a park in there, all right? If you read the old regulations, they should have come back to us for several reasons. One, that was approved 6 years ago, and the old regulations say that there's a time limit on design reviews.
Except for the PUD, correct?
No, the PUD is quite opposite.
Yeah, the PUD designates that there's this open space, and they provide information in the document about, well, this is going to be, you know, a large park facility that's going to include such and such amenities, you know, then, you know, that's established in their zoning in the normal process. They'd just be coming in with construction plans to build it, not to go through a DR process. But, you know, That's what we're suggesting is really, I mean, in the reality of how we should operate and
Well,
is...
I've seen the original Pulte site plan, master plan, and what they're putting in there now is not the same as they proposed when they come to you 6 years ago. And we've never seen that new plan, we've never approved it, but they're out there doing it.
When did Pulte first come to us?
To 2004 or so, I think we had first home.
Because I'm
2006.
I'm going to make a statement here, and maybe I'm way off here, and I don't want this meeting to become a match, but if the homeowners association up in Sun City, Anthem at Merrill Ranch, whatever, has a problem with something in the PUD, that's a homeowner and Pulte issue. We agreed in 2005 with Pulte Homes that this is what you're allowed to do. And there was a recreation facility proposed exactly where that's going at. Okay? Now, whether they flip the baseball diamond around or change this baseball diamond to a soccer field, that's still a recreation facility. They're not out of compliance. A recreation facility is a recreation facility. Whether I'm hitting a bat or kicking a ball, they're still building what they said they would build there, which is a recreation facility. Now, whether the baseball diamond is a tennis court now, or a soccer field, or a basketball court, that's still a recreation field. And I'm sorry, maybe I'm on a soapbox here, but if this is a homeowners association, you can't fight it in planning and zoning. That's an issue they have to take up with Pulte Homes.
This is not a homeowners association. My concern is Pulte, and this would be any developer, gave us a master plan that they were going to put a baseball field here, a tennis court field over here, you know, something else here and there, and that was the original plan. They've changed that plan now, and it wasn't called a recreation field. It was here's our whole site, right? It was a site plan, and we're going to put houses here, and they even gave us the lot sizes. They gave us all those details, and they're changing some of those details now. And I don't see what the big deal is for them to come back and say, okay, we're changing it, and we'd like to have approval. I don't think any of us here would ever disapprove it, but I think as the planning and zoning, it's our responsibility to monitor what's going on in our community and make sure that all the developers are following what they said they were going to do.
I can't really think of a community that has more substantial open space and recreational amenities than Anthem at Merrill Ranch, other than another Anthem community.
Well, I'm not complaining about Anthem at Merrill Ranch. I'm complaining about the process.
Okay.
You know, if we are here...
But when they go through zoning, they don't provide detailed construction plans and the details of, you know, of every little minutia that they're doing in the recreational areas. They say, you know, we have this amount of open space and we have these kinds of parks, and then it's our job to regulate that process and make sure that they do that. So
maybe I'm wrong here, unless I completely got this wrong picture. Did we move parcels of homes, whether they're built or not built, to build these fields?
No.
no,
Let's just call it a field right now. Let's not call it soccer, baseball, whatever. Let's just call it a field.
It wasn't called that on the original plan, though.
It was called a recreational facility.
No, it was not.
Okay, then I guess I never paid attention then. I'm done.
They have been, in fact, in Unit 18, in Expedition, they've changed a few things around. They still have the same plat. They still built the same number of houses, but they put in pathways and little green belts and walking pathways and everything. They didn't have to come to us for approval for that.
Well, the PUD does say that if they change the number of houses that they're putting in.
They haven't changed the number of houses, though. I think that's the fundamental point is.
Well, they have, because originally they said they were going to build 11,000 homes, and I think the last report we had is going to be 9,000, so they have.
Yeah, they can't exceed the ultimate build-out that was approved. So for the 11,000 something homes, well, they're not going to. They're going to be, you know, probably just under 9,000. I mean, what they've really been doing is adding tracks, making making the lots larger, providing more open space. I mean, that's what they've been doing in the process. So in addition to keeping their promises of providing these world-class recreational amenities and parks, they've been adding more tracks and making the lots larger.
Well, you need to go read the PUD. It says if they increase or decrease, either one, they have to come to planning and zoning for approval and city council for approval.
And we did that just recently on the corners of Felix and Hunt Highway. We rezoned the commercial property there, and that came before us, and we reviewed it and changed it.
But we didn't modify the PUD.
But we are getting a little off of the base of this particular ordinance. So this particular ordinance is dealing with design review. It's not really specific to what's going on with Pulte or Anthem at Merrill Ranch, obviously.
Okay. Well, I do have a couple more questions. May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
On page 5, item 4, it talks about the height, location, material, color, texture, setbacks. I don't think I've seen a design review where we've got into the details about the color and texture of the buildings being built.
Actually, we have. I can bring you Pulte books upon Pulte. I'm just using Pulte again, sorry. But I can bring you 3-ring binders upon 3-ring binders where there was color schemes we've approved, brick texture, all kinds of things. But that was way, way back in the beginning.
Yeah.
They have never changed their color scheme since.
Oh, yes, they have.
No, because they have a very comprehensive color package that they can choose from.
Trust me, they've changed it. Yeah.
And that particular item is actually something that's in the existing code. So you're just seeing it again because we struck out the whole. So most of what you see, in the new part was actually in the old part, including the reference to the color, texture, area. We're not architects, and this isn't an architectural review board. So the point of the Planning and Zoning Commission is never to get into to be up there and and overly criticizing the architecture, getting into the getting too deep into the details.
I agree. That's my point.
But the point is to generally look at how the architecture and the color and the textures and the general design fits in for the area, fits in for the community, and into the theme for Florence. And obviously, we've all understood that in Anthem they've established a standard and a theme. And so when we've done the charter school, we've done the hospital, we've done those projects in Safeway. You can go up there and you can say, this is the theme that's appropriate for this area. This is the standard. When we did the Super Stop, that Super Stop looks, it's a beautiful looking facility. It's probably not the facility that would have gone in front of the Safeway shopping center because it uses some different materials and colors and architectural designs. But where it's at now, it fits perfectly with the McDonald's and the Sonic and the other stores. So the point is to look at those things, but look at them in the context of the area that they're in. So we're creating harmony and balance and appropriateness.
You have any more?
No, thank you.
I just want to make a statement here. What I see when I read this ordinance is that our town staff has progressed to a point that our commission should be able to step back and trust that they're making the right decision and not have to nickel-dime everything to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Sorry guys, we are the town of Florence, and we are at a point and a size where we have to start putting faith into our staff that they're making the right decisions. And when we see the wrong decisions being made, then that's when we can step up and say, hey, this is what's got to be done. And that's where we bring our counsel in and say, hey, you know what, staff's going off on their own, we don't like what they're doing. But I'm sorry, I've been on here for 13 years, and I think this is awesome. Because I've sat up here before, seen design review stuff going, really, Gilbert, you brought this to me? It could have been a decision made in the office. So I'm not trying to be negative or unhappy, but I see this as very progressive. And I pulled out the old one because I don't like the little line throughs and read it. And that's all I see. You guys are trying to streamline the process to make our clients, the commission, the staff, everybody just work together better. So that's my little soapbox statement. Do I have anybody else that has anything to say about it? No? Okay. Nope. Well, with that, if there's nothing further to be discussed,
Have one more staff report.
well, no, we still have to vote on it. It's an action item.
Sorry, Pat.
With that, I'll take a motion if you guys so want to.
I'll make a motion that we move forward to the mayor and town council a favorable recommendation for the proposed application PZC-38-13-ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor this evening made by Commissioner Petty and seconded by Commissioner Puttrick. The motion is to forward a favorable recommendation to the town council on case number PZC 38-13-ORD, the design review text amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Please note for the record that there's 4 for the favor and 1 against. That motion, please forward a favorable recommendation. Next agenda item for this evening will be staff report item number 6. This is case number PZC 32-13-CUP. This is the Healing Health Care 3 Incorporated.
Chair, members of the commission, we put that on there just because that item was continued to this evening,
Correct?
and it was withdrawn by the applicant. So it is an inactive application, and just wanted to let you know. Rocky will continue to look for a site, and we may be back with something different in the future.
Okay.
Question on that? Is this the whole hospital or just the marijuana facility he's going to put in there?
The medical marijuana ordinance was continued without a specific, to a non-specific date. The conditional use permit for the location at the old hospital, the Adamsville Hospital, was withdrawn by the applicant.
Okay.
So the ordinance is potentially still alive at this point.
No, I'm concerned about, that was going to be a medical facility in addition to the marijuana facility.
Well, at this point, any consideration of that is off the table.
Okay, that's all of that. Thank you.
Okay, just for future reminder, just a point of order. In the future, during staff report, we cannot dialogue with staff. They can only report to us. You're welcome during commission to ask them to speak to you afterwards about it.
Okay, thank you.
But during staff report, we cannot carry on a dialogue with them.
Okay.
Next item for this evening will be item number 7. That is call to the public for comments on issues within the jurisdiction of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Individual commission members may respond to criticism made, may ask staff to review a matter raised, or may ask that the matter be put on a future agenda. At this time, I'm going to open the call to the public. Do I have anybody that would like to address the commission at this time? With the absence of the public, I'll close the call to the public. Open the call to the commission. Commissioner Anderson?
Well, I think I've said enough tonight.
Commissioner Petty? Commissioner Puttrick?
I'd just like to comment, today they broke ground on the Phoenix Mart up on 287. That's a big deal. We're talking, what do they say, 10,000 jobs, and it looks like a pretty good deal. That's all I have. And Commissioner Reed.
No, I have nothing. All right, next agenda item for this evening is adjournment. We will adjourn this meeting at 7:25.